Perfect. So, hello everyone. Thank you again for joining us for our Gateway webinar series. Today we have Chelsea Newman joining us. And I met Chelsea out in Los Angeles during the Tony Robbins event that you've all heard that I went to. And I was just blown away with all the things that she's accomplished in her life up until this point. And it's just been amazing. And even to introduce her right now is kind of tough because of all the different things that she's done. So Chelsea is a best-selling author, a business owner, a one-time professional athlete at some point. So it's just, just a huge mix of great things. So Chelsea, thank you for coming on and thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Eric. I'm excited to chat with you.
So could you tell everyone a little bit about what you're doing now in your business?
Yeah, so, I've been really blessed. I've had a really long career in the health and wellness space. So I started, when I was pretty young, like 19, and I was a professional athlete. So I didn't come from a really healthy place, but I had to transform my health through sickness. So then I ended up transferring that into a company when I was really quite young and a health coaching practice, and it's just spiraled. So over the years, I've been able to really niche down in certain aspects, but what we specialize in now is really working with corporate businesses to help them reduce risk and mass educate their employees and give their employees solutions where they feel taken care of. And of course, with the whole entire pandemic that's been going on, it's been really, we've had to make a couple quick pivots, but we're able to do a lot of different things to help businesses and employees. Because ultimately, corporate wellness, I think it's not so much a business solution as it is an investment. Like the best businesses in the world will invest in their employees, make them feel taken care of. And I can look at things like brain fog, and I can increase performance and things like that through helping the health of your actual employee base.
Great. So before we go forward with that, could you tell us a little bit about why you decided to tackle wellness? Like, why is that the initiative you took?
Yeah, it's so there's so many different ways that I think I got into that, but the major thing that happened to me when I was 19 years old, I got really sick, and I ended up going to a doctor. I was in college, and I just went to like the normal, doctor that they go to.
Yeah.
And I remember this guy telling me, like, you'll never have children. You're going to have a full hysterectomy, and put me down this whole path of surgery. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, I'm 19 years old. I feel like my body can heal itself. And I stumbled upon a naturopath. I ended up doing a full detox cleanse with him, like a really guided one that was very healthy. It wasn't like a fast or, where you're not eating or anything like that, but really just getting my body in tune with what it needed, getting all my nutrition right, getting all my micronutrients right. And I never had a problem. And I was just so disturbed at how that had gone. And I hear that so many times is, you go to these doctors and they really, some of them are so wonderful, but they're not looking at prevention. They've had mostly 6 hours of nutrition training their whole entire lives. Mm-hmm. And there's so much you can do. Like I always say, nutrition is as much of an art as it is a science. You can tell me what picture you want to paint and I can tell you how to paint it. But it just became something that I was incredibly passionate about because I first started in the beauty industry. So we were doing all skincare, and that was skin from the inside out. And then that transformed into performance. I started working with performance athletes, and I started working with the US Marshals and things like that. And it just kind of spiraled over time. And I saw, if you change the way that you eat, if you change the way that you prepare your body, not only do you help the whole entire environment and the whole entire world, but you change how you show up. So I really see it as the base of absolutely everything. And if you don't have that right, you don't have a lot of things right.
Yeah, absolutely. And so in CrossFit, I am a certified CrossFit coach. And one of the things that they talk about is that movement is medicine. Food is medicine. All of these things are medicine. How does that land for you? Do you agree?
Totally. I mean, emotion is like energy in motion. People don't understand this, but the way that you lose the most amount of fat is actually through your lungs. So through breath.
I heard about that. Yeah.
And I feel like it can become a really like spiritual practice when you get down to it. yoga is the dance of movement, and it's really the way that you connect with your body and the way that you connect with the earth is really different. I always joke, I say food is the cheapest therapist you're ever going to see, because not only does it create your moods, because it's going to create your chemical signaling, but it also tells you what's going on in your mind based on what you're putting into your body. And there's I always say there's no such thing as a bad food. My definition of food might just be different from other people's. And I really hope that people can start to transform their idea of food. And classify things as like poison versus nutrition. And there's got to be balance, and there always is balance. But really us getting back to nature. And if we change the way that we eat, we would change the whole entire planet, like greenhouse gases, etc.
Yeah. I've definitely seen some stats on beef industry that would formulate with that. Is there a type of diet that you tell your clients that, we're going to go on this path, or is it individualized down to every single person?
It's really individual because I want to meet someone where they're at. And also you've got to look at a lot of different things like socioeconomics, etc. So I can't come in and change somebody's whole entire diet. And this is what happens in corporate, right? You go in, you have a whole entire different slew of people. So you want to hear like, what are your goals? And then you really want to work your way backwards. And ultimately, I would say that the healthiest diet is like a more plant-based paleo type diet, but then different diets serve different reasons. So if you want to reduce somebody's cholesterol really quickly, plant-based is amazing, but sometimes you need higher cholesterol because it manufactures your sex hormones. So it's not always best for someone who's looking to get pregnant. So you really need to kind of look at somebody and take into consideration what's going on. And there's some really cool testing you can do now with DNA and things like that and find out what works for you.
Wow, that's so I didn't even think about cholesterol affecting, down to that kind of level. So at my gym, when people ask me, what diet should I get into? Because immediately they're like, all right, I'm going to cut out all carbs. And I'm like, okay, whoa, easy there. The first thing I tell people to do is to start eating foods that you can name every ingredient for. So, I have no clue what's in pizza, but I know exactly what's in a banana. So what do you offer as people's first steps? Because obviously I'm sure you believe that you got to ramp it up. You can't just drop the diet on someone. Yeah, okay.
So yeah, and that's like, I'm going to meet anyone where they're at, but basically the rules of thumb are, if it doesn't rot, don't eat it. If Mother Nature didn't make it, don't eat it. If you can't pronounce it, really definitely don't eat it. Those are some good ones. Probably the rotting thing. Like a lot of people don't think about that. Like a potato chip, for example, it's not going to rot. It'll go stale. But if it takes a really long time for nature to break it down, it's going to take a really long time for your body to break it down. And I always describe, we are in this time with so much anxiety, so much depression. It's really like a modern phenomenon. And I'm lucky enough to live half my year in Hawaii. I'm actually from the East Coast originally, but I call it the Sunset Beach effect. So if any of you guys have been here, it's beautiful. Sunset Beach is gorgeous. It's on the North Shore. So you're sitting there, you're watching whales jump. It's like an amazing day. You have no reason to feel anxious whatsoever. But if you put a Cheeto in your body goes, oh my God, what are all these like literally poisonous chemicals? So it's going to mount an immune response. And of course your body's going to feel like it's having anxiety because internally what's going on is very different from external. So you can do a lot with your mind because really food is just a message, right? So you can decide, like, do I want to live a anxious, stressed out life? If I do, I'll never forget I did a full sugar detox. Have you ever done one of those?
Yes, when I was a cross-country runner in high school. It was amazing.
It's amazing. So I did like a really hardcore one. I did it for 3 months, broke it on Thanksgiving with my friend's dad. We had gin and tonics. I, for some reason, as a nutritionist, didn't realize that tonic water is just the same as soda. I must have slipped my mind and completely. And I woke up with just so much anxiety and just my heart racing. And I was like, okay, so this is what it does. But people get used to those feelings. I remember when I first got sick, I thought headaches were normal, aches and pains were normal. I think people don't even remember what it feels like to feel 100% at that point. And it's gradual. So when we're coaching people, it's really fun because you take an inventory in the beginning and then you'll take an inventory 8 weeks in and they'll go, oh my God, I didn't even realize I haven't had a headache in 8 weeks. And because it's so gradual, you sometimes need to show them what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. And now I kind of want to just pivot that. So we're talking about really, really individual coaching. How do you bring that to corporate wellness where you got to, coach 800 people?
Yeah, it's been really fun and it's been really challenging in some ways because I find that a lot of the corporate programs that got rolled out are really boring per se and really, and I mean that in the nicest way to the people who put them together, but it's just very generic because you have to be very compliant. So what we usually do is we take a company culture and we look at the inventory and we see what people are interested in. And then we offer courses that people can choose to opt in either through a portal where they can log in and they can see something and they can order advanced testing if they'd like to, and they can use their FSA for example.
Mm.
So people can kind of take their own path. Right now with the COVID thing, what we're doing is classifying people into different immune categories. So we're going to say if you're high, medium, or low risk in terms of immunity. And then that individual can choose to take the course if they want to. And you can partner with companies as well to make sure that they're either incentivizing them in the right way if they want to, or just helping them use their FSA to get things like sleep trackers. I mean, the first place I actually start people with nutrition is water and sleep. And those are huge for immunity. So a lot of things are really cool right now in terms of testing as well. We test people's A1C, which are sugar levels, and you basically have 12% of the population in the United States that's metabolically healthy. And it's very easy to get them to a place like diabetes and things are fully food based. And if someone can see that I have a bowl of pasta and this is what happens to my A1C, it usually ends up with them being much more compliant. So, and you got to make it cool. Like I remember going into these companies and we would teach sugar classes and stuff and have big mounds of sugar where they would have to measure stuff out. And it was just very eye-opening. And getting people's kids involved, that's been huge. So we'll do family days, bring kids into the office, teach them how to cook. And kids are so great. They'll go home and be like, Mom, there's too much sugar in it. They don't have the emotional attachment to food that we do yet. So if you can get them, they'll be the best encouragement.
Yeah, when I started coaching gymnastics, kids were all like, they loved broccoli. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And it's just because at school they teach them that broccoli is a good thing. And I was just amazed what they would say if somebody brought in like a Hershey's candy bar or something.
Very different from when we grew up. Like I grew up in the UK and I remember moving to America. I remember my first school lunch. And it was peanut butter and fluff. And I thought it was the most disgusting thing. And then a week later, I was completely addicted to it. But literally, you've given these kids, and if you do it to an adult too, right? You've given them a bunch of sugar, no fat, they can't fuel their brain. And then you ask them to sit still and think for 8 hours. Like, you're not going to get the optimal response out of somebody at all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you are fortunate to be in a line of work that you can affect people's lives every day. Could you tell me about a time that you really, really changed somebody's life?
There's been a lot, but I would say it was kids reaching out to me. Like when I've been coaching individual women and families and stuff like that, their kids, and I do most of it through cyber. So I've had a lot of kids go on and go, I love my vegetables now and things like that. And I actually also work in fertility. So a lot with nutrition can be done with fertility. And I used to joke when I started that I helped women get pregnant, and people were like, what? But yeah, I mean, we've definitely had fertility issues overcome. So people have created families through nutrition and things like that. That's been one of my major changes. I mean, I've also been I'm so blessed, I've been in this field for 12 years and I look at labs all the time. And I'll never forget, this lady came to me, she's like, I can't get pregnant. And I looked at her labs and her prolactin level, which is a hormone, was that of a breastfeeding woman. And I just immediately said, well, do you have a tumor in your pituitary gland? And I'm not supposed to, diagnose or anything like that. And it's pretty benign, but it happens all the time.
Yeah.
And she'd been seeing fertility doctors all the time. No one had looked at that. So she went in and she had a tumor in her pituitary gland.
Wow.
So you like, after you've done it and looked at labs for so long with prevention, you can start to pick up on stuff. And of course, there's always more to learn. Those things are really very moving when it happens.
Yes. And so in a field that is as diverse and ever changing as fitness and nutrition, where do you get your knowledge from?
So you have to be very discerning, right? And I always say that I don't know your body better than you know your body. My job is to help you get quiet enough to hear what's going on. And that has changed a lot since I started because of the advancements in testing and because how cheap it is for people to get their own testing done now. So we can look at things, and I always look at micronutrient levels and stuff like that. And we can make sure people are within the ranges that they need to be in. But ultimately, even if you tell me we take a test and you're not gluten insensitive, and then we pull it out and you feel so much better, we're going to stick with that. So we're going to just start listening to you and your body, and things will change as you go on, right? Your nutritional needs are going to change. So I just try and get people to really understand what healthy feels like. There's a lot of different resources I lean into. So we've got things like the anti-aging functional medicine, but I also look towards Eastern medicine. So let's take a philosophy of East meets West, ancient means modern, and try and discern from there. Yeah, but I mean, everything's consistently changing. And my philosophy is always food first. I really don't want us to turn into a place where we're just popping supplements. Supplements are necessary for sure, but I think we need to get back to like growing food, and especially now, I mean, I think people are really starting to realize, and it can be very easy. You can do things like tower gardens and stuff, even if you have an apartment building.
Yeah.
A lot of corporate companies do that actually. They get tower gardens and grow little things in their offices and stuff like that, or
Yeah.
have CSA boxes even delivered. So you're working with local farmers and they can come to your business and drop off produce for your employees. It just makes a huge difference. You know, if you're working a traditional 9 to 5, it can be really hard to get to the grocery store and shop. And if you have a box of seasonal vegetables, organically grown, dropped off to your office that you can take home one day, it can make a huge shift. And they're usually much cheaper than going to the grocery store, like $30 to $40 a week for a family of 4.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So when you talk to your clients as well, what do you say about the importance of sleep? Because I'm sure most Americans are way underslept.
Yeah, way underslept. And, you know, with this whole entire thing going on, we know there's so many things that go into immunity, but sleep is going to be the number one.
Oh,
So it's really a beautiful place to start. People tracking can be really important. And there's many different types of sleep that you can get into, right? So you can catch people who can't fall asleep or people who can't stay asleep, and it's very different mechanisms. But if you can just nail your sleep and your water and you can get that correct for the first couple weeks, you will see a significant shift in so many things. So there's no definitive number on how much sleep you should get. Everyone's kind of different. And the older we get, the less sleep we actually usually get. But usually it's because we produce less melatonin. So really, I like tell people to aim for 8 hours in bed. And if you're sleeping for 6 of that, I'm really happy. Ideally, most people say 8 hours, but if you're at least in bed for 8 hours, not on your phone, just reading a book, relaxing, that's huge. And I think you're an athlete, right? So it's probably the thing that people push back on in America the most is recovery. We don't do it a lot, but if you look at places where people live the longest, they sleep, they relax, they nap. Like it's a very, look at animals, they take a break. I always get corporate people go, I'm just so tired at 2, I can't even keep my eyes open. And when we track their day, it turns out they've been up since 5, their brain hasn't turned off. So it's not necessarily something they need to muster through. It's something they need to embrace and say,
yeah.
okay, 2 o'clock, I need a little break.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. My entire philosophy changed when I listened to an interview from the world's strongest woman. Her name is Steffi Cohen, and they asked her in like 3 years, she became the world's strongest woman, literally 0 to the world's strongest. And they asked her, what did you do differently? And she said, I think that I've rested more than anybody else. And that is why she's the strongest woman. And I was like, that is so true. Okay. And then I switched everything from there. Now,
We give ourselves permission in the United States to do it. And I think the companies that really embrace people's wellness in that way, it comes back to them tenfold.
yeah. Yeah. And you know, even in this lockdown, so I report to a boss. There's things that I have to do. And he's a very classic boss where you have to be sitting in your seat from 8:30 to 5. And if you go out, it's to go do a meeting. That's it. We don't really leave early. And in this crisis, working from home, I found that I could do all of my work for the day in like 3 hours. And then, you know, I'm more productive because now I have more time to do things. But you're right. We don't give our, you know, we say we need to be working 40 hours, but really we can get the work done way, way faster.
I
So
have
now I want to switch.
big corporate company. Oh, I
Oh,
was just
yeah.
going to say, I have a big company I work with, international, over 100,000 employees. Their productivity, so their Chinese lockdown went on first. Their productivity went through the roof. And they were like really evaluating, okay, is this travel time? But it's not travel time. A lot of it is that you can be more productive when you don't. And also, you know, how much time is wasted in the office just chatting with people, going to the kitchen? Like it's really,
Yeah, exactly. And then when I'm here, I'm thinking, okay, as soon as I get all this work done, I can go for a 40-mile bike ride and crush it. So that I'm also like, you know, got to get out. So now I want to switch a little bit over to, so obviously you're an expert in this space. And I've talked to a lot of experts that have a tough time monetizing their expertise. What was your journey to monetize your expertise? How'd you turn it into a business?
So I always approached it with my 3 streams of income. I always think every business needs to have 3 healthy streams of income. So I had individual coaching, which I also turned into group coaching. And then I had supplement streams of income in terms of like revenue for sales. And that's actually a continued stream because the supplement industry is so messy. And as a professional, I have access to a lot of supplements that are much higher quality and cheaper for people. So as my clients have come throughout the years, I've always managed to show them what it is they need and be able to allow them to purchase through me. A lot of my supplements, people still have to get permission to order because they're stronger and things like that. So customers I've had 10 years ago, I'll get a notification and I'll go, oh, they want to buy this. Is this okay? And sometimes I have to call and check in and be like, okay, like, are you pregnant? No. Okay, perfect. You can purchase this. So that was one thing. And it built slowly. It's not an overnight thing by any means, but referrals and reviews were huge for me. So I did start in Hawaii. Hawaii is a very small knit community. Yelp was massive. Google reviews were huge. And as I ended up getting one corporate client, I would ask for a referral for another corporate client. So it spirals. It's not an overnight thing. It's like steady and steps and things like that. And really working your way backwards, I think, is huge too. A lot of people in my industry just go for the ones and twos, but I think you have to say, okay, how much money do I need to make to be comfortable? All right, great. This amount of money. That means that I have 10 people a month. I don't have enough time physically to do that or something like that. So I need to put them in a group program and then designing a group program that fits that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so you are very active when you ask for referrals. Most of the referrals you get, you've asked for them?
Yeah, and even with my corporate businesses, I will reach out to executives now and say, hey, I'm just wondering, like, I have this program. It's a boutique service. A lot of it can be covered by insurance. Some of it can't. Do you know anybody? And usually they're like, oh yeah, me. So that's not necessarily what I was going for, but that's usually how it ends up working out. And, I just genuinely believe in what I do. I always like to under promise and over deliver. And I've worked really hard in my career. So I have no qualms about it because I 100% know that what I'm delivering, I believe in and it's really good. And I've had great results.
Yeah, absolutely. So most people don't ask for referrals. Could you give a little bit of an education to people out there of how you go about asking for referrals? Because most people really don't.
Mm-hmm. So even at the end of every single coaching package that I have, I created it probably 7 years ago. It was my follow-up email. So at the end of my coaching package, we go over their results. We say, okay, this is great. And so I send them a quick email and say, all right, it was so wonderful working with you. Over the course of our journey, you've lost 7.5 pounds, or 30, 100, etc. You haven't had a headache, blah, blah, blah. Are you happy with your service? Would you be happy to write a review for me? And I include a link right there to my Yelp. So it's easy for them to click and follow. Mm-hmm. And then most of my clients are so happy that I just straight up ask them if they'd like to write a review, and I'll interview them a little bit and ask for that. Or I have an assistant who will call and follow up if it's, a corporate type thing. So okay. It's a consistent practice for me that I always ask for a review at the end of working with a company or working with an individual. And then I'll repurpose that review either online. If it's Yelp or Google, they need to post it themselves, but I'll ask them. And I ask them if they want to refer anyone to me. I used to offer referral discounts. I don't necessarily do that anymore. So, but I also offer lifetime. So if somebody's had a coaching practice with me, every single quarterly group program that I do, they get lifetime access to it if it's online. So then they can invite their friends to join them. They can say, I'm doing this detox. Do you want to join me?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. I was just going to ask, a lot of nutritionists, they'll say, all right, you're going to be with me for as long as possible. Do you kind of onboard them and say, yeah, exactly. So
I feel like that's like if a therapist told me you're going to work with me for the rest of your life, I'd be like, that's not great. So I top people out. The most I work with people is 8 weeks, and they are welcome to go longer. Like if they have significant weight loss that they need to lose, like 300 pounds, we're not going to get it done in 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. And I say, my job is by the end of this 8 weeks, I want you to feel like your own doctor. I want you to feel like you know what you're doing. And you're welcome to have services with me once a month, once every 6 months to follow up. But my job is to make you graduate this program within 8 weeks. So I either work minimum 3 weeks. I don't feel like I can ever get someone results in a week or one session. I don't think that's fair to me or them. And that's setting yourself up for failure, right? Like if you know in one session you can't get them good results, don't stress yourself out. Just say, I don't work with you for less than 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And then up to 8 weeks or 8 sessions is what I say.
Yeah. Yeah. And now going a little bit back to the business history, at what point did you kind of think like, okay, this is a business that's going to work and I'm all in on it?
Super interesting story. So it was my partial income for a long time, and then it kept growing and growing. And then I got an opportunity. So I was a professional polo player, a horse polo, and I got an opportunity to move to Australia and train horses. And if you're in the horse industry, you know that it's very rare to make even close to enough money. But I was like, okay, I really want to do this. And so I completely transitioned it online, kind of out of necessity, and ended up doing my horse job, consulting. And then it turned into a lifestyle business for a really long time, where I said, I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to work online. So it was a lifestyle company. And then about 3 years ago, I transitioned into saying, okay, this is my 100% passion. I have a lot of skills, like how can these niche down? And it's constantly evolving. I mean, I never could have predicted a pandemic to come in and us to be able to get people back to work and have it fully covered by insurance. And I think that people are going to really open their eyes at this point to the power of preventative medicine. Like, unfortunately, in the United States, we have the highest rate of diabetes of any developed country. And we know that diabetes, heart disease, and asthma, the first two are completely preventable by diet, put you at a 10%, if not more, greater risk of dying of COVID-19. So I think that people are going to start to open their eyes, and it's going to be a huge transition for us right now. I mean, a lot of people rumored in the United States that this virus had mutated, but if you really look at it, because we had younger deaths, but we have a younger population base of people who are diabetic and overweight. So yeah, I think this is going to change my industry completely, and I will be excited is not the right word, but I think people did need a wake up call of, okay, preventative is the best medicine. We can't be this overweight, sick nation anymore. We don't deserve to be that way. And it comes down to education, it comes down to infrastructure. And I really hope that we can change that. And that's always something that I struggle with too, because it's very socioeconomic. So that was also why I created group coaching and went for corporate, was because I could reach the masses and it didn't have to cost them. Because I wanted to I don't want my services to only be to people who can afford it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Can you give a couple of tips to companies that are looking to reopen of things that they should be looking out for?
Yeah, you're going to need to evaluate your employee base, and it's an icky situation to get into. You actually do need to hire a third party, because as an HR person, right, you can't go, all right, you're higher risk because you're this age or you're overweight. You really can't. So don't try and be an expert, because you're not, and just know that there's experts out there. Consult with doctors, consult with nutritionists. It's a very sticky situation to be in, and every single employee is going to have a different way that you're going to need to treat them. And also, I think there's two ways that this can go. I think you can really invest in your employees and make them feel totally taken care of, and like you prioritize them and their families. And I think hiring a third party, really showing them like you respect their health, is a beautiful way to go. And I think it could go very wrong if you force them to come back to work, if you don't really understand the protective equipment that they need, because they're just going to feel not taken care of. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a really beautiful way to create a long-lasting culture with your company, where you feel like, oh, okay, they really genuinely put me and my health and my family first.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we conclude, you wrote a book. Could you tell us a little bit about that book and what's it about and what went into it?
Yeah, I co-authored a book with Kyle Wilson. You might know him because he was partners with Jim Rohn, who's Tony Robbins' mentor for forever. So we co-authored a book called Resilience. And it's really just about my story. You know, I said I didn't grow up the healthiest. So I always like to start that when I'm talking to people in a corporate setting, because there's a lot of people in there who go, well, this thin woman is going to tell me what to eat, but it wasn't always that way. So it's really just a story of how I got into the health field, and kind of the story I told you guys in the beginning. All of the proceeds actually go to helping fund wheelchairs for people who need it, because we had another author in the book, and he became paraplegic after a skiing accident. And so now he has a charity where he gets wheelchairs to people who need them around the world. So you can find it on Amazon. It is called Resilience, and it's actually a best-selling book. So I'm just a chapter in there, but I've written a few other nutritional books, and I hope to have more come out in the future. I would love to do a little cookbook, a really funny one, because I think you can find a lot of humor in food. And I think it's just a beautiful way to bring people together. Like, people need to cook more, slow down, and I think that's a beautiful thing that we've all been experiencing lately.
Yeah, absolutely. So if people want to contact you, how do they do that?
So right now, the best way to get to me is a website called withchelsea.com. So CHELSEA. On that site, you can reach out to me. It is just my personal coaching practice, but we can get you in touch with the corporate side of things through that business. So,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect. Thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Eric.
Of course. Okay, so that, like I said, is the first part. And then these second questions, they might seem a little bit random, but these all oftentimes lead people to the full interview, because they can get pretty fun. But first off, that question I asked about what companies are going to be doing to what when they open up, I'm thinking about, let's just splice that up, and we're just going to send it out to our 20,000 email campaign, because that's so important. They need to hear about that. So that's already going to be sent out. So,
I mean, Eric, it's such a nightmare. Like, my job, so they want me to go into doctor's offices and a cold call. And I said, okay, so what happens if I get infected? And then I cold call on a doctor, and I go to another one. Are you guys going to get sued? And they're like, shit, I don't know. And so, yeah, it's like they really have an opportunity. Like, companies need to take it really serious.
Yeah, exactly. Because if for doing just that, people are getting arrested. Yeah. So one random question is, a lot of times when I coach people, they want a coach that looks the part of being a coach. Do you ever feel, so you made that comment like, oh, what's this thing girl going to tell me about it? But do you ever feel like you need to look a certain way in order to be that person for those people?
Yes, I do, but I was very careful with my branding from the beginning. So I never wanted to be the girl that posted acai bowls and things like that. So I don't really get into my personal life in terms of what it is I do. I really try and talk to people through words and look professional and polished and healthy. And I think that comes with just my lifestyle, but I'm never going to post like bikini pictures or be that kind of nutrition coach. And that's just because that is my demographic. And a lot of what I do is I work with women for helping them get through to their body image stuff. And I think beauty comes from the inside out. So yeah, obviously I have to look nice for work, but I'm not going to be one of those people who bends over backwards to create that persona.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. And I've certainly seen those accounts where then they're basically posting all these bikini pictures, and it's like, oh, you do nutrition too? I would.
Mm-hmm. And I'll look at some of the food they're posting. I'm like, well, that's a glycemic nightmare. So, I really just want people to be real. And I don't work with bodybuilders. I don't work with bikini contest people. That's not my demographic.
Yeah.
If I did, I would probably, create a branding along that way. But mine is to work with the average person and help them feel as best as they possibly can and make it easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and now I want to jump over to supplements. Now, in the CrossFit world, we try to be as strong and as fast as possible. So I've been informed by multiple people that creatine is like our go-to supplement that all of us should be taking. And I'm sure that is not something that you suggest to everyone. Could you tell me a little bit about like what kind of supplements are key after you figured out your food?
Yes. So I always say like your foundational bundle, and the things that I always recommend that every single person be on is a really high quality magnesium. And there's different types of magnesium, but most people I test are going to be deficient there. And almost everyone I test is going to be deficient in vitamin D, which is crazy because I live in Hawaii and most of my testing comes through here. But that is very closely related to your gut bacteria.
Okay.
So magnesium, vitamin D, and usually a fish oil is the foundational. Now we can tweak that depending on what's going on. We can get really advanced, really niche, and a vitamin C. So those are the three things. But the problem with the nutrition industry is it's really messy. There's really only 5 major manufacturers in the United States, and then the raw material suppliers that bring in, there's not that many of them. So a lot of these products get cut. A lot of them are not tested properly. So I just recommend working with someone who can get you a professional supplement line that you as a normal person can't order, because they're stronger. They're going to be usually cheaper. And a lot of times with things like in Costco, they don't have to label. So if a company purchases something and then a company prior to it has adulterated it or mixed it, the company who purchased it and put it in their product doesn't need to say what the company before did. So yeah, my recommendation is just to work with someone who can get you a good supplement line that's clean. And it's a really hard thing. And they don't have to be crazy expensive. Like a vitamin C does not have to cost you an arm and a leg. But those are my 3, I would say: C, magnesium, and fish oil, and usually D.
Yeah, and in LA, we spoke a little bit about CBD, and I even shared with you that I tried CBD, and it has no effect on me. Could you talk a little bit about the great, well, or just why that is? Could you talk about CBD? Yeah.
CBD is probably the messiest supplement in the whole industry, because it's projected to go to 22 billion by the end of 2020, which is outperforming the whole entire organic food industry combined. So you have literally everyone and their mom jumping on, and the regulations aren't fair. So the things you want to look for, like with you having no help with CBD, number one, it might be that your body's just already tuned up because it's adaptogenic, but more likely it was that you got a product that had little to no CBD in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens all the time. So there's a couple things you want to look for. One is there's a QR code on the CBD, so you can scan it and you can see the certificate of analysis. There's really only 14 companies, I believe, as of now that got a hemp certification. So one of those. And as much as I love to support small farmers, it's a really complex plant to grow because you're actually breeding hemp. It's not marijuana, it's hemp. And you need to breed it to have enough CBD content. So I explain it like you could have an orange that has little to no vitamin C in it. And you could have an orange that's really got a ton of vitamin C. It's just going to depend on the soil, etc. So it's really important to get it from a really reputable company. And that is one of the messiest supplements out there. It's also one of the most dangerous because hemp and sunflower are bioaccumulators. So they clean soil and they'll suck everything into it: heavy metals, molds, toxins. Like if we have oil spills, we use that. So all these people who are like, American grown hemp, I'm like, well, we have some of the worst soil in the world. So you have to be very cautious of where the hemp that you are getting it from or getting your product from is grown. And in the US, there's really only, I think there's only 2 companies right now that are soil to sale. So the rest of them use hemp brokerages. So they don't really know what's going into their product. It's the same with pretty much all nutritional supplements. It's just worse with CBD because there's so much money to be had.
Yeah. And mine was like, I think it was like $75 for what would be like 30 days. And I was like,
that's actually really cheap.
Oh my gosh.
Really
Oh man. Dang. And I still haven't finished it because I
was at this store in Malibu in California, and this lady goes, oh, could you look at my CBD? It's 800 milligrams. It was $50 topical. I was like, well, that's really ridiculously cheap. Flipped it over. Literally not a single drop of CBD in the whole thing. They just put the word CBD on the front. And if you look at the ingredient list, there wasn't even one cannabis part of the plant, because cannabis is the name of the family. There wasn't one piece labeled on it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that's going on out there. Now, there is a debate going around. People are starting to make CBD infused foods. What do you think? So now it's going to have to, it's going to go to court if it's not in there already, whether that's allowed. Do you have any opinion on that?
Well, so CBD, so hemp oil is great for you. It's high in omegas. It makes an awesome salad dressing. But just because it's hemp oil doesn't mean there's a lot of CBD in it. Now, as you eat products, it's going to ruin their molecular structure. So if you have something that's been cooked in CBD oil, it's actually probably really dangerous for you, and it should cost you an arm and a leg. Now, if you were at home and you were going to make your own power bars and put CBD oil in it, or dog treats and not heat it, I think that's great. But I think the majority of the times, if you're getting it at a store, it's going to be a ripoff. A couple exceptions to that might be if you're making like a bulletproof coffee using CBD oil, because the coffee's not hot enough necessarily to mess it up. But I would just say, if you're going to supplement with CBD, just actually supplement with CBD. You're probably going to get ripped off. And like most of these gummies and stuff, these foods, I mean, they've got sugar in them. It's like, well, that killed the point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I would say it's a big waste of money. Don't waste your time on it. But if you want to use it at home, like I do make power balls and I use my CBD in it, or I'll drizzle it on things like salad dressings and stuff, which isn't cheap, but I have access to it, so it's okay. But for the average person, I would say it's going to be a really big ripoff.
Okay, got it. Okay, good. Now, from more of a women's empowerment, women's motivation view, you told me that you had to play, when you played professional polo, you had to play against the guys because there wasn't really a women's league. Could you talk a little bit about what was that like and your experience breaking into that field?
Yeah, I mean, we do have a women's league, if you will, but it's not the level. So it's kind of like golf. You've got your handicaps and stuff, but there is a women's open and stuff, but you can play with the guys. Unfortunately, no woman has ever gotten to that level. And I will say, as hard as it is for me to swallow, I am a 5'2", 110-pound woman. Like I can't necessarily go up against some huge guys. And so it's been really fun. It's a different game to play with women, but it's a man's sport. It came out of Argentina. There was a lot of money involved. So it was humbling, saddening, I would say, all at the same time. And it definitely taught me that there's not total, I remember growing up thinking women's rights were all afforded to me. And I think as I entered the working world, and especially the professional men's sports world, no, it's not the same. And we can read things like Abby Wambach's book and things like that where we talk about it, but yeah, it's not quite the same. But I will say, I mean, physically, I can't compete at the same level that they can. I used to get called for elbows all the time against like 300-pound men. I'm like, well, what am I going to do here? So it's unique. I've learned a lot through it. I would say women keep going. And my female team members were so supportive. I started the UH women's team with a group of young women when we were 20 and we're like 18, and they're still some of my best friends in the world. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. I can think of a couple people who would love to hear that message. There was one more question that I had, and now I can't quite think of it. But no matter, that was really awesome. If there's anything else you would like to get kind of queued up for and show off any expertise, is there anything else you would want to cover?
No, I think that was really fun. And yeah, I'd love to open up the call for corporations to jump on a webinar with Dr. Pacina and I and go. Hopefully you can jump on that tomorrow and we can just see like how that develops for companies.
Yes. Okay. So let's create a LinkedIn advertisement for that right now. So I'm just gonna lob you a question that'll set you up for that. So in this coronavirus pandemic, companies are wondering how they open up. Do you have any resources for people to go to understand how to open up their companies when they get the green light?
Yeah, so it's going to be really state-specific, company-specific, and employee-specific. I would say don't try and be an expert, consult with experts, and make your employees feel really invested in and really safe. So first, you're going to need to classify your employees as essential versus not essential. Then you're going to need to get them tested with the correct testing before they come back to work. Then you're going to need to test them 2 weeks in afterwards as well. And you're going to need a doctor or a third party to help you with those results, because you're going to need different protocols for people who have and haven't been exposed. You're going to need different protocols for people who have high risk people at home. Like we were just talking about, imagine if Karen comes to work and she starts coughing and Julie sees she doesn't wash her hands. It's going to be a bit of a nightmare. So don't try and be an expert, consult with some experts. We have a webinar coming up. I've been in corporate wellness, for 10 plus years. consulting with a doctor who's done policy for 26 hospitals around the United States. So we're going to walk you through, and there's going to be so many unknowns. So it'll be a Q&A. We do have a lot of things to go through, but you can get your questions answered at the same time.
Perfect. And where can people find that webinar?
We could just put a link right in below, and then they'll register. And we can also, they can watch the recording. So if they are unable to attend, just go ahead and register, and we will post the recording as well. And pointhealthsolutions.com is the website that you can go to as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Well, that's all from me. Thank you so much for